Here.
Carberry Montgomery. She's here on screen. She's driving. Okay. Cacciatore.
Here.
Here.
Kroll.
Here.
Rosendahl.
Here.
You got me?
Yes, thank you, Bridget.
Sweet.
Okay.
Do we have the motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Do a voice vote.
Bodie. Thumbs up from Bodie. Excellent. Cacciatore.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Rosendahl.
Yes.
Bridget. Carberry Montgomery.
Yes.
All right, let's start with the regular agenda. Item 3.1 is the Central Iowa Waterworks and Urbandale Water Utility update. I don't know who's going to be kicking us off, so.
I think you need to use the mic.
John McEwen, Chair, Urbandale Water Board. First off, we thank you for allowing us to discuss the future of the water utilities. And at this point, I think I'm just going to turn it over to Tammy Matson and discussion on Central Iowa Water. We'll start there and then we'll close with Urbandale.
Should it be displaying on the screens? Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. I'm assuming the mayor is somewhere listening or no?
He's on his way.
Yeah, he'll be joining us
Great.
shortly.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Tammy Madsen. I'm the Executive Director of Central Iowa Waterworks, and I'm very, very proud to be here with you today. I met some of you in DC, and some of you I haven't had the honor and privilege of meeting just yet. So I'm here today to talk about Central Iowa Waterworks and how we are working with the region to provide a regionalized effort to continue to provide water now and into the future for reliability, resilience, and to make sure that everyone has their needs met in a healthy way. So some of you I know are new, and some of you are well ingrained into this effort. So I'd like to let you know that American Waterworks Association has selected Central Iowa Waterworks as one of the 4 most influential projects for the United States for this year. So they came and they filmed with us to recognize us on a national platform for what we're doing as a region to continue to provide clean, healthy, resilient water. But what was interesting to me about that is that what we're doing is not exactly revolutionary for our region. Urbandale and Des Moines Waterworks have been doing this since 1934. The Fluor Drive plant, which is the flagship plant of this project, was actually built over 100 years ago. And in 1934, Des Moines Waterworks signed the first regional agreement with Urbandale. And then West Des Moines joined the effort in 1953, and then in 1974, Des Moines Waterworks and West Des Moines Waterworks started sharing the water utility. So if you'll remember, in 1993, there was this great flood where people didn't have water or access to treated water for up to 19 days. That's when the LD McMullen water treatment plant was built, and people really started thinking about this regional collaboration and how you can continue to keep people in water even when there's a natural disaster or some other event that would cause an interruption to service. So in 2017, for those of you who recall and those of you who don't, Des Moines, West Des Moines, and Urbandale Water Utility started discussions about a regional water utility, but it never really gained traction then. In 2019, Des Moines Waterworks started the discussion again, but COVID-19 happened, and those discussions again did not gain much traction. And then Des Moines Waterworks, West Des Moines Waterworks, and Urbandale Water Utility started meeting to have these discussions and plan this regional utility. In 2021, the conceptual framework really started going, and Des Moines Waterworks signed the founding resolution, and then the public meeting started. So as we advanced through 2022, 2023, and 2024, Central Iowa Water Works really picked up. And then, as you can see here, on December 31st, 2024, we signed the final documents, and then Central Iowa Water Works became a recognized utility, and on January 1st, we commenced operation. So what is Central Iowa Water Works? So we are a regional water authority with 12 founding member agencies, and what we do together, as I've already mentioned, is we provide resiliency for water within Central Iowa. Together, we serve over 600,000 water users, and then, of course, we can have upwards of 800,000 as people are transient in and out of our community. So we serve over 22 billion gallons of water a year, and then this infrastructure provides resiliency as we have issues with nitrates in the water, poor water quality, any other issue that you can imagine that would keep one water treatment plant from being able to provide water into the system. We do have 12 founding entities. Urbandale Water Utility was instrumental in starting this regional effort. And then, of course, as you can see here, there are 11 others. Our service area is displayed here on the screen. If you live anywhere within this region and you're connected to a treated water system, you are receiving water from Central Iowa Water Works. Right now, we have the treatment capacity to treat 125.5 million gallons per day. This treatment capacity can be limited by things like poor water quality. So during nitrate season, that capacity can be severely limited when the plants have to slow down to treat those high nitrate levels. The Fluor Drive water treatment plant does have nitrate removal equipment, but again, at times we can see almost a 50% reduction in capacity at that plant to treat that nitrate. That's why it's so important for us to all be involved in this regional effort as we're building out new treatment facilities, putting out RFQs, and really working together as a region to try to solve these issues and put out this message of why it's so important to protect our water resources and work together to find new water resources and source water. So what we're doing today, which is why I was invited here, is to talk about what we're doing today together. So there was an HDR study, and in that study, it revealed that currently we are using upwards of 108.2 million gallons per day. So in our hottest, driest, biggest peak demand day, we can use up to 108.2 million gallons of the 125 million gallons per day that we can treat. What we need to be able to treat is 208.2 million gallons per day by the year 2050. Currently, we're expanding the Saylorville water treatment plant, and then what we're working on is RFQs to build a new west plant near Van Meter, and then to expand the Grimes plant, which is located in the city of Grimes. The RFQ just closed for the west plant, and we will expect to make a recommendation to award that tomorrow at our technical committee meeting, and then at our board meeting next month. We also have a Grimes plant RFQ out. We will not be awarding that until about a month from now. And then by 2050, we expect to expand the Saylorville plant up to 50 million gallons per day. Here's a bigger picture of what our network looks like and what we hope to be able to expand that network to reach that 208 million gallons per day. It's very large. As we all know, it's a very large regional system. And then again, here are the 12 member agencies who make up Central Iowa Water Works. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today to give you an update on where we are and what we're doing for Central Iowa Water Works. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have or turn it over to Urbandale Water Utility.
So primarily for those those were all production expansions that you were looking at, or was there a specifically new plant as part of those?
So we do have a new plant. The west plant is near Van Meter. We do anticipate constructing that. We don't think that it will be producing water for 7 to 10 years. We still need to locate the plant, find the source water, take all of those activities. So the RFQ that's out for it now is for planning and design. We expect that to take about 2 years. And then we do have an expansion for the Grimes plant. It already exists. It does have room for expanded facilities. And then the next would be an expansion to the already existing Saylorville plant. It would have new construction for a plant beside the existing Saylorville plant. We also have plans to build out the core network. You can think of the core network as the transmission mains, so the very large size pipelines that connect all of the cities and the member agencies, and also pump stations, the equipment that we need to be able to introduce this new water into the core network.
How are the expansions to be funded?
So the expansions are funded by the member agencies. So we have the 28E agreement, and it's very well laid out in there how the different assets are funded and how the shares are proportionately funded. So the member agencies have the opportunity to use SRF funding, or they can fund it through cash. They would ultimately decide how they want to fund their portion of the expansions. And then I would add, each member agency decides how they want to buy into the system. So if a member agency would like to purchase 1 million gallons per day in a treatment plant, they would have the opportunity to buy into that treatment plant. No one is forced to buy 1 million gallons a day or 2 million gallons a day or anything like that.
When we were in DC, we were looking to try and secure some funding for the ASR. Can you explain a little bit about how that would fit into the scheme of things?
Yes, ma'am. So the ASR is not a Central Iowa Water Works asset. So that would be a question for Urbandale Water Utility.
Okay, it doesn't really benefit Central Iowa Water Works at all, or?
It would benefit Urbandale Water Utility. It would not be a Central Iowa Water Works asset.
Okay, one more question, totally unrelated.
Sure.
And that is, I have been told that one of the key reasons why we need to do some level of expansion is due to our constant irrigation of our turf grass. And I don't just mean golf courses, right? And so I was wondering, to what extent does Central Iowa Water Works think it might get involved in campaigns or education components around things like that, and what would be our role in something like that?
Absolutely, Mayor and Councilwoman. So we had our first water best usage practices committee meeting yesterday.
Okay.
And so I didn't give you a little background about myself. I came from North Dakota. I ran a regional water utility in North Dakota. We also had member agencies. It's very similar to this. I also have a master's degree in hydrology, so I'm very passionate about what we're discussing here today, source water quality, being respectful of our source water as well. So yesterday at our committee meeting, we had a big discussion about how our 2080 agreement does not dictate how our member agencies can use their water. So nobody's going to come to a member agency or a city and say, you can't do that. But what we're doing as a water usage best practice committee is coming together, bringing scientific evidence, bringing best practices around the country, and bringing that to our member agencies and our communities in Central Iowa to show you how that water use drives the cost of water. So just, anecdotally speaking, every 1 million gallons that we have to build out in a treatment plant costs about $20 million. So if you're watering your lawn, overwatering your lawn, every 1 million gallons that we're doing that to 1 million gallons per day to a water treatment plant is costing about $20 million. So we would like to educate on, if you're watering and you see water running out into the street, you are overwatering your lawn. If you're watering every single day, you're probably overwatering your lawn. If you are prioritizing watering your lawn over watering whenever nitrates are high, and we're concerned about how much water we have in the system, those are all issues that Central Iowa Water Works as a whole really needs to think about.
And so our role would be to locally reinforce all that.
Absolutely. So in our Water Best Practices Committee, we talked about a shared folder where there will be educational material and graphics that communities can share out so that we are all as a region sharing the same message, because we know that our communities all have different priorities. Some communities really like having green grass. Some communities really like having turf. But it is important that we all have the same message that water is expensive, it is a finite resource, and we need to all understand what that cost is, and we should be having that same message as communities.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for asking that question.
Wanted to quick clarify, you said the 1,000,000 gallons, that's like a 1,000,000 gallon per day like production
Yes.
capacity, basically.
Yes.
So if we were to knock it up by 1,000,000, it's $20 million basically, approximately, to do that capacity annually.
To build a water treatment plant, yes. To build a water treatment plant that can produce 1 million gallons per day would be about $20 million per 1 million gallons. Yes.
Okay.
I apologize that I came in late, but I was
Sure.
listening until on my phone until I walked in the room. And I was just wondering if you could, since I didn't see it, since I was driving and paying attention
Sure.
to driving, if you could show the map. It sounds like you
Yes.
had a map of the area.
Okay, so this is our service area. It's very, very large. So a story that I was told when I first started making my visits and out in the community and meeting people was that one very influential community member, I won't name him because it could be an embarrassing story.
Is he in the room right now?
No.
Okay.
But I'm sure you all know him. He said that when the big flood happened, he was so happy that he lived in Urbandale because he was going to have water. And he felt really bad for everyone else because it was very unfortunate that they didn't have water. But he was out of town and he was very glad he was going to get to come back to Urbandale and have water, because he didn't realize that Urbandale received water from the Fluor Drive plant. So he let me know that as I'm going around talking to people about the importance of regionalization, that I make everyone aware that if you live anywhere in this very large service area, what's happening at Fluor Drive, what's happening in Saylorville, what's happening in Polk City Grimes, that all matters, and that's all very important, because your water is coming from places that you probably don't even realize it's coming from. So even as we talk about that and we talk about nitrate issues and lawn watering and all of those things, it is important to have that discussion on a regional level, because your water is coming from some place that you probably don't even realize that you're receiving it from. Thank you for that question.
Oh, absolutely. I lived in Iowa City in '93. I was barely older than or younger than Blake here. And my sister, who lived in Urbandale at the time, had to come to Iowa City with her babies because she didn't have water in Urbandale. So it's an interesting little story that you have there. I guess I forgot my other question. I'll come to it.
Can we see the next map again, though, just because it's cool and it went by fast? Yeah, that one.
Absolutely. I love that you think it's cool. I think all things regionalization and water, I think it's all really cool. And I am just so flattered and so glad to be here with Central Iowa Waterworks and to be the person that was chosen for this project. Like I said, I came from another regional project, and I am a firm believer that this is the way to go. We can't make everyone happy all the time, but we can certainly work together to try to meet everyone's needs as they come along. And I'm always available by cell phone. I've been told that that's not the best thing, but you know, in a regional water system, it is important to be available, because water is a very important thing. So anytime, give me a call, text message, email, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. We are dealing with a lot of money here, so please don't hesitate to ask any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Neil Weiss. I'm the General Manager at Urbandale Water Utility. I've been in that role for almost a year and a half now. Before I start talking about some of these slides, I'd like to recognize the others that are with Urbandale Water here today. So you met John McCune. He's been the board chair for the Board of Trustees for 35 years, or maybe a little bit more.
I was going to say since it's a deception.
That's longer than you, Bob.
And also with us is Ron Pogge, who's one of the newer members on our board. And we had one that couldn't make it today. Mark Wandrow is the third Board of Trustees member. For Urbandale Water Utility staff, we have our financial manager, Kathy Barger, as well as our water distribution manager, Matthew Jacob. So thank you to both of those individuals for everything they do on a daily basis in all these projects that I'm going to discuss with you here today. So I just have a handful of slides here to talk through, and feel free to stop me anytime and ask questions. Hopefully this can be more of a conversation about some of these topics. So as we go through here, feel free to ask anytime. I want to start out with just a general overview of the water distribution system for Urbandale. There's roughly 250 miles of public water main in the water distribution system, ranging all the way from 4-inch in diameter all the way up to 30-inch. You can see the 4-inch, that's really been a priority to try to remove that from our system and upsize that in a lot of our WSI programs. So we have just under 2 miles of 4-inch to go to get replaced in our system. We have close to 4,000 valves in our system and nearly 3,300 hydrants to date. So it's certainly a lot of infrastructure for our distribution maintenance staff to maintain on a yearly basis. When looking at our system in general, it's actually split between a west pressure zone and an east pressure zone. That dividing line is right around 100th Street. In our west pressure zone on the left side of the map, we do have 2 water towers in that pressure zone. Our furthest one out west at 170th Street, that's a 2 million gallon water tower. And then on 114th Street, that's a 1.5 million gallon water tower. So water is delivered to the west pressure zone from a CIWW asset called the LP Moon Pumping Station. That's located on 156th Street, just north of Hickman, actually in Clive.
It's like 2 blocks from Urbandale.
Yes, yeah.
What is LP Moon? I live right by there and drive by it every day. What does LP Moon mean?
I believe a lot of,
That's somebody's name?
yes, it's former general managers with Des Moines Water Works.
Okay.
So on our east side, our Urbandale Booster Station on the right side of the screen, that's right by the Tenney standpipe. So that's also another name of a former Des Moines Water Works employee.
So is the tower, I'm especially curious since I drive by it and
Sure.
try to understand what I see every day. Is the tower that we see in the little picture there at LP Moon, is that a cell tower or does that have something to do with water?
I believe that's a cell tower.
Okay. And it used to be or the signs there used to be Xenia. Did we acquire that or how did?
No, that LP Moon pumping station serves a number of different entities,
Okay.
with Xenia being one of them.
Okay, because I just remember that marking being on it
Sure.
many years ago. But I don't see it now, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a very large pumping station. There's a 10 million gallon reservoir there on that site. So it's certainly a critical asset for Central Iowa Water Works.
Yeah, and just real quick, it's named after Louise Moon, who was on the Waterworks board.
Thank you, Pat. You were always coming in with the knowledge there. I thought it had, was some highly technical
No,
term that I didn't
I
understand.
know, it looks like it would be, doesn't it? That's just the uniqueness of her name.
Then moving to our east side on our pressure, or on our distribution system, that provides pressure by the Urbandale Booster Station, which is on that Tenney standpipe CIWW asset ground. And we also have a pump station located on 104th Street, just south of Douglas, which can actually push water to either our east or west pressure zone. So there's a number of improvements that are needed at that pumping station that we plan on doing in our 5-year CIP.
And is that 104th a CIWW asset as well?
No, that is owned by Urbandale Water Utility. So there's some talk of purchase capacity earlier when Tammy was speaking about Central Iowa Water Works. I just want to make you all aware of where Urbandale Water Utility sits right now as far as purchase capacity. We have a long history of staying ahead of the need to buy purchase capacity. It was that way with Des Moines Water Works, and it's remained that way now with Central Iowa Water Works. So this chart here just visually represents that. If you see in 2025 on the left side of the chart, our peak demand in million gallons per day, we're sitting right around 10.5 MGD a day for our peak demand. And if we project that in this instance to 2060, looking at population increases and how many gallons per person per day are being used, that's how we can get an accurate estimate on what our demand will be in the future. So currently, our purchase capacity is actually right around 13.7 MGD, and that horizontal line there is shown at 14.2. Once the Saylorville expansion is online, Urbandale will be at 14.2 MGD. Then you can actually see that dashed line that's a little shaded right above that. I'll talk about this project in the next slide, but that's associated with our ASR well project, which will actually increase Urbandale's capacity up to another 3 MGD. So we're working through all of this right now, looking at these estimates as far as what we need to purchase right now with the next treatment plants that are coming online. Like Tammy said, that can take anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So we certainly want to make sure that we're in a good position moving forward. And want to say thanks to David Curtis and Economic Development. We've had conversations about this, and it's certainly an area where we want to work closely together as far as planning for future growth. These pictures on the right, just want to mention that with Central Iowa Water Works, we did retain ownership of the property that we call the Sutton property. It's just south of Interstate 80 there in west of Merle Hay. That site is about 20 acres or so, and it was always a little small as far as a site to build a treatment plant. So it made sense for Urbandale Water to retain ownership of that parcel. And then in the bottom right is the gravel pits up in Johnston along Beaver Avenue. That actually was transferred to Central Iowa Water Works with our formation. And that is being looked at as a potential source water for capacity expansions in the future.
Are the permits still, do we still have permits on those? I mean, I know we had permits on them a long time ago.
Yes, we still do have water use permits on those, and those are, during that transfer of assets process, those have been transferred to Central Iowa Water Works.
Are they, how long are they valid? Because I know they have to be extended from a time.
Yes, I believe they're on 5-year cycles. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew or Tammy, but
Okay.
I believe those permits are on 5 years.
Okay.
With the space that we have still retained, what kind of function do you feel like would best be put there?
You know, what the water utility uses it for right now is just material storage. We really don't have any other spot when we have a water main break or doing maintenance on certain projects where we can store some material back there, some granular material or different soil. So that's really what it's used for right now.
Are you talking about the location on the top map?
Yes, correct. Yep. Yeah, we don't really have any long-term plans for that parcel, but it really hasn't been discussed in much detail with our board.
It's a great coyote refuge.
All right, this is one of the bigger projects the water utility will be taking on here in the near future. This is called an aquifer storage and recovery well, or it's commonly referred to as an ASR well. This is something that we actually started preliminary design last year, and we contracted with Strand Engineering to complete that preliminary engineering report. And we actually just received our water use permit for this well, which is a big hurdle in these projects, working with the DNR. So the best way to explain how these ASR wells work is this graphic here that's shown on the left side of the screen. So as you can see up at the top left, during the winter months when demand is very low, we'll actually inject water that was purchased from CIWW, inject that down into the aquifer. In this case, this location in Central Iowa, it's all the Jordan aquifer that we're using. And that will be pushed down there over several months during the winter and stored in the aquifer. Then when it comes time where there's high demand in our system, June, July, August, that's when we would start extracting water from the aquifer and pushing that out to our distribution system. So it's certainly provides many different benefits to Urbandale and to the region. This would certainly be an increase in reliability for Urbandale's distribution system. It is certainly a great use of the land. When you look at alternatives such as above ground storage reservoirs or building additional treatment capacity for, say, Urbandale, if we didn't have this option for an ASR, this is certainly a good option. There's drought resilience that would be related to a project like this. And then long-term savings as far as savings for ratepayers and the Urbandale public. This is really a big one when you look long-term. Tammy was mentioning the cost of 1 million gallons of water for purchase capacity is, they're estimating $20 million for that. This project, our current estimate is right around $14 million, and we could be pumping upwards of 3 million gallons per day with this ASR.
There's no native groundwater in where this water is going to be stored?
Could you say that again?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand where it shows stored water. There's no native groundwater in those areas.
There is native groundwater in
There
that
is.
area. It almost creates a bubble in the aquifer, and it will push that native water out. And over time, it creates this bubble. And actually, the outside areas of the aquifer there, where it's pushed out, there'll be a lot of mixing of native water to the treated water. But
I
over
see.
time, that formation improves, and you can actually get recovery upwards of like 98, 99% of the water that you put down there.
So there's
one
still
thing-
treatment of the water as it comes out again, there's
Yes,
some,
there-
light
there-
treatment, not full
there-
treatment, but.
Yes, there is some chemical treatment. I'll certainly check the disinfectant level to make sure that's where it needs to be, and we'll add to that as needed, as well as some pH adjustment in the water when it's down there. So when this is all said and done, you will see a wellhead on the site, and then there'll be a separate building on the site that would house the pumps and some of the chemical feed systems required for the project.
Where is this located again?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is planned to be located at the 170th Water Tower site. So that site is actually a few acres in size, and it was planned way back when that water tower was put in to have something like this. So there's certain requirements as far as separation distances and certain area that you need to not put any chemicals for lawn use or this or that. So it's certainly a large enough site, and it works well with how we will pump into the water tower.
And this is an asset of the Urbandale Water Utility, but will it be utilized to help offset our purchased water from Central Iowa Waterworks, or how does that all work?
Yeah, this is certainly, when we're looking at different scenarios as far as purchase capacity for 2050 and what purchase capacity we need to be thinking about now, the ASR certainly plays a role in a lot of those different scenarios that we look at. It's not something that you can rely on 100% on, that it's always going to be there. There's always maintenance on everything, and something could be down at times, but it's certainly a big factor in looking long-term at purchase capacity.
But this will allow us to purchase when water is plentiful, store it, and then use it perhaps when nitrates are high and
Yes, correct.
limited or restricted
Yes.
resources. Got it.
Yes, and the more that we use this during the summer, during those peak demands, the less water that we're taking from Louis Moon Pumping Station, and it's better for the region in general. So lots of benefits to both Urbandale and the region.
So it does benefit the region, right, ultimately, kind of? I mean,
Yes, like Tammy
Some
mentioned, the
level
main
of
benefit
capacity.
for Urbandale, because we do retain ownership
yeah, yeah.
of it, but anything that Urbandale does to improve their system is a benefit to
Yeah.
the overall region. So
Cool.
I do want to mention the community project funding grant. Thank you to David and Curtis for letting the water utility know about this federal funding opportunity. This was through a grant through Zach Nunn, I believe, and we filled out that application. They helped review it. I believe David was out in Washington D.C. as well this last week, so
Yep.
I hope there's a good chance we receive this funding. Any funding will help our ratepayers when looking at a project of this size and scale for the water utility.
So what's the time frame on this? If you said, I missed it, I'm sorry.
So this project, like I said, we started preliminary design last year, and we just received our water use permit. We're working on the design contract right now, and we hope to start design sometime this summer. So the design itself will take upwards of a year to complete. And then the construction period of a project like this takes upwards of 3 years. And a lot of that is because some of the testing periods that are required for a well like this, the EPA actually gets involved in a number of different permits that are required, as well as looking at some of those testing schedules that are required for this. So it would be around 2029 that we'd be in full operation of production for this well.
The grant was one of the top priorities that the mayor presented to our federal representatives last week. So just FYI, it's, I think, well on their radar, both senators and Congressman Nunn, and the mayor put that high on the list.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you. One thing I do want to point out is during construction of this well, there's a picture of the West Des Moines Tower right there. When they're drilling this well, they want to start that drill, and they can't stop the drill just because of the process of potentially getting stuck in the aquifer, a couple thousand feet down. So once it starts, they'll be drilling continuously 24 hours a day for anywhere from 3 to 5 months, however long it takes.
Okay, I got some questions about that.
Sure. So as you can see, noise mitigation is certainly going to be a priority.
Because there's a school like across the street, so
Yes, certainly.
are we,
So
I
what-
mean, that's down the road, obviously, but hopefully we can try and align that so it doesn't disrupt, maybe it's during the summer, I don't know. I guess it really depends on
Yeah, so
when
what-
the stars align for it, but
What Urbandale Water Utility would be proposing is something very similar to what was done recently in West Des Moines. West Des Moines Waterworks recently completed drilling an ASR well. Their site on 88th Street was set up very similar to ours. There's actually apartments and houses and a park right nearby. We were able to tour this during the well drilling process. Actually, some city staff went out there with it as well to tour the project. And they have a 25-foot wall that was constructed around it with sound mitigation measures associated with that wall. And talking to West Des Moines water staff, they have not received one complaint on sound with this project. So it's certainly nice to have a project that has done this mitigation efforts, and one that we can kind of replicate here in Urbandale. So I plan on coming back to a future council meeting, and I can discuss that in more detail as far as what we're planning on designing for sound mitigation, but that will be our proposal.
yeah, I just want to make sure that we're in communications at the earliest stages with the schools so they can.
Yes.
And it sounds like, it might not be anything to worry about, but I still think making sure that they know this is happening, as soon as we know it's going to happen, so that they aren't surprised.
Yes. Yeah, we've been in contact with the land developer right around that area as well as the school. And during the design process, we will have public meetings with the consultant as well, so.
When you were there, how loud was it?
What's that?
How loud was it when you were there? Was it okay?
I would say that even standing inside there, it wasn't any louder than just normal traffic on the roadway.
Cool.
So, yeah, I think there's certainly some generators on site that could be louder when those are operating, but there's certain protection too you could put around those. So I think it was certainly a great solution.
Does the drilling impact water flow at all to customers at that time? Or it's completely offline?
No, it'll be completely separate from our distribution system at that time. It will tie back in eventually to our water tower and our distribution system, but our water system won't be down during that time at all either. I would like to mention that we did start a water system study with Snyder and Associates last year. This was really a comprehensive look at our overall water distribution system here in Urbandale. It involved updating our current water model and calibrating it and validating it and running multiple scenarios with that new water model. So as you can see on the screen, some of the examples of what we looked at were water age. As you can see, that's the one on the left. We looked at existing pressures in the system and fire flow availability. We modeled different scenarios as far as velocities. So really just an overall look at how well our system performs. And this will really be a guiding document for future capital improvement projects for us and prioritizing some of those water main looping projects and replacement projects. So certainly a great project to get staff involved and a little more familiar with our distribution system, and certainly a great tool for us moving forward in the future here.
Can you explain what water age means? And I'm assuming younger water is better, or I mean, is it just how long it sits in the pipes? I don't.
Yeah,
it
so
sounds like an interesting concept that I want to know more about.
Yeah, the reason that we wanted that modeled was one of our maintenance tasks on an annual basis is hydrant flushing. So right now, we'll go around and flush all the dead-end mains in the system, but we wanted to look at this a little more strategic, and one of the ways we can do that is looking at the water age in the distribution system to find those areas where water might not be turning over as much, and we can go out there proactively and flush those areas to really increase water quality is the goal here. So yes, like you said, that's just how long the water is sitting in the distribution system. And the water age that they chose for this graph here, that was upwards of 7 days, I believe, is in the red. But that's still fairly young for water age when you're looking in a distribution system. Overall, there's very good turnover in our system. Some of this was just how they modeled it, that there's some more red showing up in the system.
So there appears to be red all over Urbandale. I mean, not just where you'd think there was less development or something. So is that like the end of a line, or?
Yeah, so that'd be an end of a private line.
Okay.
Specifically in the model, they didn't put any demand at the end of that line, so it's showing up red just from how they modeled it. So we're gonna go back and look at that and clean it up a little bit to make it a little better for other people when they're looking at it. But yes, as you can see out west, there's obviously some areas that are underdeveloped right now, so it makes sense that some of that water age is more than 7 days, and that's some of the areas that we'll focus on going out and proactively hydrant flushing.
Is there kind of a target age that you like to shoot for?
You know, I asked that question, and Snyder had someone that worked at Iowa DNR for 35 years, and they couldn't give us a specific answer on that. So there's so many different factors that play into that water age, the condition of the pipe, and anything that the water may come in contact with at the treatment plant that would eat up some of that chlorine in the water. So there's not a specific, 30 days or 25 days, unfortunately. There's just too many factors that play into it.
Gotcha.
The lead and copper rule revisions are certainly been a hot topic in the water industry for the last several years. One of the main changes with these rule revisions is the addition of a lead service line inventory. That was actually due to DNR last October is where we submitted our first draft. So long story short, lead service lines are not an issue in the city of Urbandale. We have over 17,000 total service lines that our staff had to work towards filling out a format that the EPA and Iowa DNR provided us, looking at the address, the year that the home was built, and the service line material. So we looked at material on both the street side, the service line closest to the water main, and also the house side. So we did have a lot of historical records that helped us in this inventory, but we had thousands of lines that we actually went out and visually inspected, both inside the houses, and then did a potholing activity that you can see, that picture on the bottom left, that's actually our vacuum excavator trailer. We'll pothole on either side of the curb stop and visually inspect the service line on a lot of those locations as well. So certainly a very large lift for the water utility completing this survey. We did submit it with 2,800 unknown but not lead status. Our staff is currently working this summer to complete all those unknowns and confirm the material of those service lines. And that is actually due in November of 2027 is the final submission for that inventory. So one other change I wanted to mention, there will be a school and child care sampling program that the water utility will be required to start sometime in 2027. So that's also a list and a program that we'll be working on here.
Is there age of development of a city that helps confirm or deny whether or not you have lead?
Well, 1988, I believe, was the lead ban on a national level. So that's certainly a date that EPA was looking at. If homes were built after that date, that could be enough justification that lead wasn't used.
So when you do this work, is it really targeting those parts of the community that were built prior to 1988?
Yes,
So we
and-
luck out in that regard.
We were fortunate to find some historical documentation that in Urbandale specifically, in that middle picture, you can't read it, but it's the document that, explained the ordinance or the ruling, that Urbandale only requires or only allows K-type copper for service lines. So that was documentation that was certainly helpful in this whole inventory.
What's the date on that notice there?
Sometime in 1974, I don't remember the
Okay.
specific
Yeah,
date, but yeah.
That's fine.
John, do you remember or no? Sorry.
Yeah, EPA did accept that as historical documents that could be used in this inventory.
Okay.
But there were still, several thousands of homes that we had to go and visually inspect, and they're still working on, so.
Is that something you contract out then, or are you?
No, that's
I
something
mean,
that-
The field, we have enough staff to be
Yeah,
able to
our
manage.
customer service staff made thousands and thousands of phone calls, setting up appointments. Our staff did door hangers to set up appointments. Just a combination of different ways to get inside these houses. Some of our water meter staff with our meter replacement program has been tracking what service lines they see when they replace meters too, which certainly helped when completing this survey.
And so do we have areas, I mean, I see where we don't have lead. Are there parts of Urbandale that there is lead?
We have not found a single lead line
Okay,
in
great.
all of our investigations so far in this inventory, so it's, to date, it's not an issue in Urbandale. We actually had interviews with some longtime plumbers in Urbandale as well that had, were doing plumbing 50, 60 years ago, and they did not ever install any lead lines as well, so that's certainly nice, because it is very expensive to replace a service line. As you see in that image on the right, in Urbandale, the customer would own the service line from the corporation tap at the main all the way to the water meter.
Well, it sounds like quite an undertaking that you guys have done, and that's really impressive. So for the ones that are unknown but not lead, I mean, are most of the pipes then copper, or are there other materials?
Yes, most of them are all copper in our system. Some of the larger lines can be a type of PVC plastic, but a lot of the 1 inch is all copper. We also have some galvanized, I believe, in our system. But even some of those galvanized would have to be replaced if they're downstream from lead with this program. So at this point, those galvanized lines in Urbandale won't have to be replaced unless we locate a lead service line.
So are there other communities, other communities in the metro are doing the same thing? Is Central Iowa Water Works then leading the efforts on that, or?
So all the different communities involved in Central Iowa Water Works, they still retain ownership of their distribution system.
So they're doing all this same work, though?
Yeah, all the other communities are doing this same work.
So are we seeing in other communities, like Des Moines probably, like lead pipes, or?
I can't speak on the number of lead pipes in Des Moines, but I know there were tens of thousands of unknown status that
Okay.
could potentially be lead in Des Moines. And I know they do have some lead lines because they have tried different programs for replacement of lead service lines with federal money. So they're certainly working through that. I would say that Urbandale, as far as being in the metro, we're certainly in one of the better spots. as far as
Sounds
lead
like
service.
it.
Lastly, I'd just like to end with a slide here, speaking a little bit about customer service activities and also our water rates. It's certainly our goal to remain very competitive as far as affordability of water in Urbandale, and you can see that by the chart there on the left. Effective May 1st of this year, we did increase or adjust water rates. It was a little different this year than in previous years. We actually put more of a rate increase on the irrigation water than we did the domestic or residential water. So a 5.5% increase on irrigation and 3.5% on residential rate.
So is the 3417 a consolidated rate, or
That's
between
just, So
the?
that's just looking at 4,000 gallons used.
So the residential
Yeah, for
rate?
residential, yep.
But if you have a second
Irrigation meter.
tap or
Yep.
meter, yeah, then you pay more for that.
Yes. Yep. We are always making improvements with customer service and getting out there, talking to the public. Want to give thanks to the PR team here at Urbandale for including the water utility in external and internal newsletters. You can see one of the articles in the upper right was a picture from this May's newsletter, I believe. Some of our customer service staff recently volunteered at the event at the library, the sustainability event. It sounds like it was a huge success. And then on the bottom picture, that's some improvements we made to our website, specifically looking at water conservation. It now has its own separate tab. We are promoting the recommendations from CIWW as far as different scheduling for lawn watering specifically. So that's something that all the regions are kind of pushing and recommending. So please go check out that page if you haven't yet.
One question on the, you mentioned an irrigation meter. Is it required to have a separate meter when you put in an irrigation system?
Yes, it is now. We have some in our system that were grandfathered in, that were deduct meters, but now anytime an irrigation system goes in, you're required to have that separate meter.
Do you know approximately when that was put in place?
I do not. I would have to get back to you on that, look into that a little bit.
I hate to put you on the spot back there, Derek, but I think like this section of the water utility website on our Urbandale sustainability section would be a good thing to link, but I bet you've already done that, so.
He's asked for it, I just haven't sent it yet.
Okay. Well, as long as it's in the works, I mean, it just seems it would make sense to include that in that area that we're creating.
Thank you again for having us over here.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
When you came on board, we were already starting work on kind of the leaks in the system.
Sure.
I was just wondering what kind of progress report is there on that?
You know, that's certainly an ongoing effort for the water utility. We did purchase some more equipment that we can use for investigating those leaks in our system. And we're also looking at increasing replacement of large water meters in our system that may have some inaccuracies as far as reading that could be contributing to that. So there's a lot of factors that play into that, but it's something that we proactively go out and look for leaks. I think we're one of the few cities around here that do leak detection kind of on an annual basis in our system.
Are we making progress, you think, or?
To tell you the truth, it stayed pretty steady right now, but yeah, I think it's certainly going to be a work in progress and something we're focused on.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Tammy, thank you for being here. Sorry I was a little bit late for the presentation. Thanks to Urbandale Waterworks, too. You know, again, in summary, and it's good for everybody to hear this. I've been involved for a number of years when the regional water discussions were just starting, and long before this came to fruition. And Pat obviously has been on the water utility as a trustee, so she's very intimately familiar with it. But it's good for everybody to hear this and to know where we are, and just to know that I firmly believe that CIWW is the right thing to do, and you know, water's only going to be a more precious resource as years to come. But I think we are positioning our city and we are positioning our region as well as we possibly can for the near-term future and the long-term future. So I just want to thank everybody's involvement on that. I just note again, John, in all seriousness, John's been involved for a lot of years. I appreciate all his help on it, and Ron, thank you for being here. And also want to recognize Jody as well, for being from West Des Moines to be involved in such a long effort on this. So thanks to everybody. With that, we're at the end of our agenda, so we are adjourned. We'll give you some time back in your day. It's a little before 1, so thanks everybody.